Welcome to another episode of Loan with Jen. Whether you're listening to us on podcast or video, we are glad to have you. Today, we are talking about solar panels, how they work, what are they anyway? And I have a very special guest, Kelly Kokora, who happens to be my baby cousin, but he's also a solar panel freak. You freak in a good way. Like, you are selling solar panels, and he is going to tell us the good, bad, and the ugly today about solar panels. So Kelly, thank you for being on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for welcoming me on, and really stoked to be here and shed some light on how solar panels work and any other questions that might come about.
Yeah. Awesome. So, and as you're listening, if you have any questions, make sure to comment. We'll get everything answered at some point, and we'd love to hear your questions about solar panels. Because Kelly, I mean, solar panels are. We were talking before we started rolling, and solar panels are still not a huge thing. How many percent of households have solar panels? You were telling me.
So in the United States of America, it's 3% that have adopted solar panels. So it's still a very new thing. Yeah, exactly. So 3% residential.
Now, are there other countries that have a lot of them, or what's the country that has the most?
I think it's Germany. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, on that question, but I know that there's a lot of other countries that have adopted them
that are ahead of us.
A lot of European places that have also, like Hawaii. Just speaking of the U.S. residential in general, like Hawaii is like, I think, almost 45% residential solar now. Wow. So they've adopted really quickly. California is like 12 to 13% now, and then it's slowly starting to move its way to the east.
So is Hawaii included in that 3% diluted number, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So 45%, and then California is right behind it. So those are the Sunshine State. It would make sense. Yeah. I'm starting to see them more and more in Texas. And so it's coming up when we're doing the loan. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But I'm going to ask Kelly some questions about just some of the basic ins and outs and questions you should ask if you are considering solar. And then also I'm going to ask him some questions about if you're buying a house that happens to have solar panels, what do you need to know? Like, I'm going to kind of tune you guys into that. And then, again, just kind of the good, bad, and the ugly of what people need to know. Because am I right, Kelly? I mean, it's not for everybody. Like, it's not for 100% of the people.
Totally. Yeah. There's a lot of good things. And then some people, it actually doesn't make sense for them for whatever their circumstances are in their life, and we can get into that when you ask me, but essentially solar panels is a long investment. Like, it's a 25-year investment. And so the biggest one that comes to mind is like, if you're only planning to be in a home for a few years, 5 to 10 years, it might not be the right investment for you,
Well, I mean, let's just kind of start there then, because I've considered it, but I mean, I think we're going to be in our house for maybe 6 more years. I mean, Pablo goes to college in 6 years, so both my kids will be out of the house. I mean, I'm definitely going to want to downsize. So as much as I want to help save the environment and all, if I do solar panels now, I'm not going to really be able to recoup it, right? You said 5 to 10 years is kind of a first gauge of entry point.
Yeah, so they say, like, stats, at least in California. So I sell solar in California, so I know a lot of California stats. I don't know what it is in other states, but yeah. The average system out here in California takes around 8 or 9 years to repay. So, like, if you invested, let's say your solar system was $20,000. At year 8, on average, you would break even on your investment, and then you would start to actually return, a profit, if you will, from your investment after that point. And then basically, it's you want to gauge it that way. If you're going to go, there's lots of ways that you can go solar too. You could do, like, traditionally 15 years ago, the best way to do it was to just pay cash for it and skip over a loan, because you would, if you had the capital and you knew you're going to be in the home for at least 15 years, then you pay cash and you get your return on investment at some point. Then the loan came out, and then now there's like leases, and then there's even what's called a PPA, which is another product as well.
So let's dig into that really quick. So let's just say I'm considering solar. I'll just be the guinea pig at this point. So I would somehow get in touch with a solar lien company. So this is my first question. I see so many different companies out there, and you, the name of the company that you work for is Sunrun, right?
Sunrun.
And y'all been around a super long time.
17 years. Yep.
Okay. Is that kind of when solar started? Was 17 years ago? 17, 20?
Yeah, like around 20 years ago or so. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really not that long ago.
Yeah.
And are all solar panels, like the equipment, pretty much the same? Are they all manufactured in the same place, or how does that work?
Well, there are definitely lots of different manufacturers for sure. It's a big market now, so there's lots of competitors to sell solar panels, but most of them are made. It's like a very East. It's I would say a lot of panels come from like China and Japan and those areas of the world. And they're not all made the same for sure. They're all very similar when it comes to like size and like, it's basically determined how productive a panel is based on like the size per watt. A lot of people ask, well, how many kilowatts or how many watts is that panel, And the better ones are usually closer to 400, and then there's some lower ones that are 350, 340.
So the higher the watts, the better.
The better. It might cost you a little bit more, but they're usually they'll produce more energy, photovoltaic energy.
So a company like Sunrun, are y'all manufacturing it? You're just outsourcing the production. You're using places in China to do it and then ship it back over, or do y'all just buy from somewhere else? Like you're a
So we don't have our own solar
production.
No, we don't produce solar panels. We do have our own battery that we're building right now, but we don't source from. We don't build our own solar panels. We actually just source like 3 main different ones.
Okay.
Our main is like LG. Actually, we sell more Tesla than Tesla does.
Tesla. So Tesla has solar panels. They're one of the manufacturers.
They are. They're closing that down. But they definitely still are the number one battery provider. The Tesla wall would be the one that people always talk about. That's
wow, who knew?
Yeah.
So basically how many companies of solar would you say are approximately your competitors right now in the US?
Oh gosh, I can't even
dozens,
count.
Like more than 20?
No, way more than, like in San Diego alone, there's probably over 300 solar companies.
Oh my God, it's too much. So how does anybody know? Like, let's say that I'm thinking about solar.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were, I would call you because you're my cousin, of course. But let's say that you'll say I'm a different person and I don't know you.
Yeah.
So where do I start? Like, do I walk into Costco and call them, or like you see stuff everywhere? How do I even know who to call?
Yeah, interestingly enough, Costco reached out to us a few years ago, and they wanted to partner with us, and so we have like almost in every single Costco that we sell in 24 states. In all the Costco's, there will usually be a Sunrun rep sitting there,
cool.
talking, waving to people. Hey, like
I didn't even know that before I asked you the question. That's cool.
Yeah. So, good question. Where do you start? You probably want to look at your costs of energy and see like how effective it is in your market. I know for a fact that Texas is a very, like when it comes to traditional power, it's not very expensive. There's a lot of other states that have a lot more expensive energy. San Diego actually being the highest in the nation right now for the cost of energy, which is why it's such a popular thing in San Diego to get solar.
So you're going to recoup your investment a lot quicker because you're saving so much more money on your bill. Because that's what solar does, right? Is it obviously it takes the sunlight. So you need to live in a sunlight place.
Yeah.
And the sunlight charges the battery. Am I thinking about that right?
Yep.
Is there a battery?
So there's a battery and or there's two different options when it comes to that. Batteries are, can be fairly expensive. So it depends on like the reasons of why you're going solar. Some people do it with batteries because it might, the grid might go down a lot in their area. And so they want to be, they want to set themselves free from, they want to take control of their power and be in ultimate control of it. A battery can be pretty expensive. The costs are coming down as we start to develop more and more of the technology. But you can also send your energy into the grid, and most of your traditional power like plants that, when you have a traditional power plant, you probably have like somewhere that you buy your power from. What would it be over there in Katy, Texas?
Yeah, I mean, it's a company, it's Reliant. They're one of the largest in Houston. Yeah.
So they'll be able to create an agreement with you and the grid saying, hey, when you create solar energy, you send it into the grid. And then later on at night, when you need to pull it back, you have like a credit bank. You use the grid as like a battery almost.
Okay, got it.
Store your energy in there, and then you pull it back. When it rains or snows or whatever.
I'm contributing to the system to bank it for later on when I need it.
Yeah, and there's still all your credits. It's not like you're just like giving away your energy to other people. You get all of the. Usually, the meter on the side of your home will spin backwards when the solar energy goes through it. Mm-hmm. And then when you pull energy back from the grid to run your refrigerator at night and, TV and whatever you need to do when the sun's not out. Yeah. You pull the energy back and you get, and for most places, it's an equal exchange. California is going through some different things, which we won't get into when it comes to that. That's a whole nother layer of how to understand, what you're doing with your energy. But generally speaking, you can send your energy into the grid and pull it back. And then, some people choose to get the battery because they want sovereignty on their power. They want to be in control. Also, I mean, solar panels it's a good thing to do. So it's helping to lower the amount of just gas and things that goes into the atmosphere and things like that.
So really on someone, back to the question about, I know I got you off topic. So back to the question about how do you even know where to start? I would think that in any market, there's certain companies that are just squeaking in your ear, Mm-hmm. So I guess you start with that. And it sounds like Costco or Sam's or whatever, like usually those kinds of places have, like you said, agreements, and that's kind of a good reputable. I mean, I can't imagine Costco aligning with anyone that's not reputable, but who knows?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you get with a company. I'm sure there's questions you have to answer. I'm sure you have to give like your bill, probably, right? Like your current electric bill.
Yeah, because we need to size your system. We need to know how much energy your home's using and like be able to, show you like how many, let's say your home needs, like, I'm sure your home would need like, I don't know, 40 panels probably. You probably have a lot of, energy.
Yeah, we have a big house. Okay.
With the grandparents out back and everything. Yeah, so it just depends. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the square footage. So depending on the size of your house, depending on the amount of sun, like to places like Washington and Oregon where it doesn't rain a lot, they probably aren't. I mean, would I be right in assuming they're not good candidates for solar because the sun's not shining that much?
Yeah, definitely not a good candidate for solar.
So if you live in a place where it's not shining a lot, you shouldn't. It probably doesn't make sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, got it. And so you get an estimate. So what kind of questions? Like, I don't even know what I would know to even ask. Like, as a consumer, what kind of questions do you think I should be asking?
You should probably be asking for like, gosh, as a consumer, I'm always on the other side of it, and I'm like presenting it all. So it's tricky, but I would say like, you would want to know like what your costs would be versus traditional power, how much you're going to be able to save when that's probably a good, like most people, I would say 95% of people, I mean, of course it's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do, but like 95% of people do it because they're motivated to save money in the long term. So you would want to see like what your costs are going to be, and then you also want to factor in like what, what kind of responsibility you're taking when it comes to that solar system, because a lot of companies might just sell you a solar system and give you a 25-year manufacturer warranty and then just like say, hey, good luck or whatever, but solar systems, like a lot of people think it's just like a set and forget kind of thing, and just, it's going to provide me power for 25 years, which is very wishful thinking, but honestly, that's not the case. And so you have to think about like, well, what kind of like, agreement are we talking about here? Are you guys giving me any workmanship warranties? Is there anything included when it comes to the maintenance, or like, how do I monitor the system? Is there like an app that I'm able to see if my system has been producing on a monthly basis?
Those are great questions. Like, like is it just like a car where every so often you have to have maintenance? I'm sure parts can wear and tear and weather and.
Absolutely. Yeah. Essentially it's technology that's out in the elements of nature. Of course, they're built to be that way, but you can't predict everything. There's, acts of God that happen where a tree might fall on your house.
Yeah, what if they break and like lightning strikes it or something? Is there,
exactly.
If it's under warranty, do y'all fix that kind of stuff? Acts of nature?
So acts of nature, for sure, it depends on the type, it all depends on the company that you're going with and what kind of agreement you're going with. If you paid cash for solar panels, no, definitely not, because the solar company at that point, you made a one-time transaction with them. They got their money. They gave you maybe some manufacturer warranties, which definitely wouldn't cover, if a tree fell on it or whatever. You would want to get some insurance on your solar system, and essentially be prepared for if anything like that happens.
Okay, so questions need to be revolved around maintenance. And what happens when it breaks? How long is the warranty? What do you cover and what do you not cover? Like acts of God. Acts of nature, what's covered and what's not.
Right.
I think I'm assuming from what you said that if someone gets a loan, I'm reading into this, but if someone gets a loan, the solar company is a little more invested in making sure that it's functioning and that there's that y'all are servicing it and stuff. Is that right? Because you said that if it's cash, it's kind of like you're done and it's a transaction.
Absolutely. And same thing would actually go for a loan, where you would think the loan is getting paid over time. It's not. The solar company isn't the bank, so they actually sell the loan to a bank, and then it all becomes a third party thing from the solar system. So actually the loan works the same way as the cash, whereas a lease, or what's called there's a new product that's out that's called the PPA. Those two different things will provide you with some more guarantees, generally speaking. When it comes to between the lease and the PPA almost always is going to have more guarantees and less responsibility for the consumer, which for certain people is a huge plus. If you can get the cost of energy to be low and still save you money without taking responsibility and having to sign up for a whole loan or take a whole lot of debt, then a lot of people find that very attractive, and that's why it's become a very popular product in the space.
So let's dig right there. So it sounds like there's a few ways. Let's talk about the few ways to pay for the panels. Let's say I've come to you, I've gotten the price, and you're like, okay, Jen, you can either A, pay cash for everything up front.
Yeah.
B, you can get financing. And do y'all hook us up with a few? Is it kind of like when you buy a car where there's 2 or 3 companies that can quote the financing or whatever with rates and stuff?
Yeah, we can shop the rate a little bit, and then also you could even get your own, like if you wanted to go through your own credit union or however.
Okay, so it's similar to like a car. So B, you could get financing, or C, you talked about a PPA. What does PPA mean?
So a PPA is a power purchase agreement. And so essentially it's kind of like the same way that your power agreement is set up with your utility company, except for it's a longer term. Essentially a PPA is a third party owned solar system. And so the company would front the upfront cost. So you wouldn't have to pay for installation. Generally speaking, some companies do it differently, but we don't. There's no upfront cost. And then you, rather than, creating a lot of debt or paying, a bunch of cash up front, you actually just lower the cost of your energy. and then pay over time at that rate. And so you don't have to like put up a whole lot of money. In fact, generally speaking, it's none. And then you get to save money from day one rather than 10 to 15 years in the future.
Okay, so that might be a good option. And that's like you mentioned, that's similar to leasing. Like at some point you use it. Let's say I was going to be there for 6 years. I benefit now. And then when let's say I sell the house. So we're going to get into that because I want to talk about what happens when you buy or sell and you've got these panels. Because as a lender, I've had that come up where I've seen it. So let's say I do the PPA, the power purchase agreement. I'm benefiting over the next few years and I go to sell the property. I have to hand the equipment back in. Is that what happens?
So I can only speak for Sunrun because I know how we do it, and other companies might do things slightly differently, but generally speaking, this is kind of how it is. The power purchase agreement will be, every solar system lasts for, they say, around 25 years. So generally speaking, your power purchase agreement would be somewhere between 20 and 25 years, depending on which company you go through. And the way that it works is you basically agree to pay for that energy from the solar system rather than your traditional power. And you can't necessarily just like opt out of it, like and just say, hey, just remove the solar panels, because the company needs to actually recoup their investment too. Because remember, they're putting up the panels for you.
They're doing it
at no cost and all that, right? So their win is in the long haul of it. So what you can do, the benefits of a PPA, like let's bring up your situation. You're saying, hey, I'd like to, I don't know if I'm going to be living here for, more than 10 years. You're going to downsize. Obviously that house is a lot of responsibility. But for your specific scenario, a lot of people that I work with, like, they end up doing the PPA because it's actually transferable without having to do a credit check or assume any debt for the new buyer, or it basically just transfers over they can adopt the payment.
The new buyer, because there's a payment on it per month, and so the new buyer of my house could adopt the payment, as long as, I just want to make this really clear because this did happen on a loan, a gal that she was buying a house that had solar panels. And she did not qualify with that new payment because her debt to income was super, super tight. So she actually could not do it. And in that case, and I don't know if it was the PPA.
No, it must have been a loan because you're talking about.
It must have been a loan. So the seller was able to uninstall them from their current house and they moved the panels to the new house. So if you're a buyer or you're a seller and you're watching or hearing this and you're going to buy a house that has solar panels on it, you need to ask the question, what happens to the solar panels? Do I just inherit them? Did you pay cash for them and I'm now just benefiting? Or is there a loan involved that I'm required to repay that I need to assume? And you got to check with your lender to make sure you qualify. Or is the seller planning to take them to their new house? Absolutely. So the PPA is filed of record one way, and then the UCC. So UCC is a fancy name for Uniform Commercial Code. I looked it up before we did this, and it's a lien that's filed on the property, but the property is at the property address that's selling, so it has to be addressed. I mean, it comes up on title when you're selling the house. So I know the nitty gritty says that it's not a lien on the house, but it's a lien that's side by side on the house that has to be addressed. Like we're going to know about it when when we pull title, we know about it. So
for sure. Yeah. It's a lien for the property. When it comes to the PPA, it's actually just a lien from the company to the solar panels saying, hey, this is our property. You cannot take it, remove it when you sell the home. Yeah.
It has to be addressed.
Sunrun has a full department for when people sell their homes. So like, the real estate agent and the loan officer can like contact the company in this exact department when it comes to, because this happens all the time. You have to think about it. A lot of people don't live in their home for 25 years. That's a long time, Yeah,
it is a long time. Well, cool. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground. So I super appreciate it. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think people need to know before they make the decision to do solar panels or not?
I would just say, like, think about your circumstances. Like, when it comes to like where you start, you would think about like your circumstances. How long are you going to be in the home for? If you're planning to be in the home for a really long time, if you know like this is your forever home, then look at the options that are available that are going to benefit you the most. Generally speaking, that in most people's eyes, that's going to be the cash route. It's probably going to save you a lot more when it comes to over time. But then you also have to think about, like, what people don't realize is that you're going to assume responsibility for the solar system. So there's a risk involved in that. So it's debatable whether or not it actually saves you more than like versus a PPA, because a PPA will actually save you money from day one, and then you just lock in a rate for the term of 25 years.
Okay.
And so
Cool.
it's debatable, and things are, I guess my point is that you want to like basically address your circumstances first, and see like where you're at and what the reasons are that you're going solar for, and then reach out to, either a trusted friend who has a rep, or somebody that like you said, Costco or something that will help you with someone who's going to be reputable and help you. Because there's a lot of people that go door to door and knock out in the streets and aren't doing very reputable things, so you want to find someone that's, find a company that is, going to be one. Well, this is another important thing too, is like solar is a long-term thing. And so you want to find a company that's going to be around for a long time. What we've seen a lot in California is that a lot of people thought it was a really great idea to start up a solar company because there's a lot of money involved in it.
It's a cool thing to do.
Yeah. And so they started solar companies, and then 5 years later they went out of business, and then all the solar systems that they sold now have no company to talk to when it comes to
that's horrible.
Their solar system. If something breaks or whatever, they're stuck with a manufacturer warranty, which means you're calling someone overseas to try and get them to help you with. Good luck. It's just not going to happen.
No, that's actually a really good point. I'm going to put your info in the notes, the description or the show notes of whether you're looking at us on YouTube or the podcast, to where they could pop you an email and see if you're in one of the 24 states that you guys lend in. Because I can tell you, Kelly is an honest dude. I've grown up knowing this guy. He's a great place to start. And I feel confident that if it wasn't right for them, you would tell them. I know that I tell people when it's not right for the mortgage, I'm like, no, you don't need to refi, So we'll put your information here. But thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I have learned a ton about solar panels. And so thank you, Kelly. You're
welcome. Thanks for having me on, and happy to answer any questions from anybody who's watching this. And
you got it. Awesome.
Super good to see you, Jen.
Yeah, thanks for joining Loan with Jen. Join us anytime for another episode. We release every Friday. We'll talk to you soon.